Hi, this is Eric Smith. Time to do another quick look video, and I thought I would do it from the Gospel of Luke, the 19th chapter, verses 45 and 46, and the Word of God reads this way. Then he went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in it, saying to them, "It is written, my house is a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." In these two verses in the 19th chapter of Luke, we have the account of Jesus Christ going to the temple and driving out the people that were in the temple doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. Now, if this sounds familiar, you might have read a similar account in John chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. Believe it or not, that was at the beginning of Jesus Christ's ministry, where this account was at the end of Jesus Christ's ministry. So Jesus Christ actually went to the temple twice, and this is the second time. And why was he going there? Because as the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, to see people doing the things they were doing in the temple of God gave him righteous anger. Righteous anger that he needed to call them out. That's why verse 45 says, then he went into the temple. So he saw them, he saw what the people were doing, and he went there and began to drive them out. Began to drive out those who bought and sold in it. So what he's doing is he's driving out people that are selling merchandise in the temple. They were making it like a marketplace, but it shouldn't be that way. The temple was a place of what? It was a holy place where you went to pray to God, where you went to have relationship and communion with God. This is what the temple was for. And Jesus Christ saw what they were doing and was angry, and he just said, listen, you need to get out. You need to stop. And that's why in verse 46, it says this, saying to them, it is written, my house is a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. Now notice in verse 46, it says, it is written. Why? Because Jesus Christ was quoting from two Old Testament verses. The first part of the verse says, it is written, my house is a house of prayer. Well, where is Jesus getting that from? He's getting that from Isaiah chapter 56, verse 7. In that verse, it says that the house of God was going to be a house of prayer for Jews and Gentiles both, that the nations would come to the temple to pray. Now, I believe this foreshadows a future temple, and when Jews and Gentiles that are believers in Yahweh will come. Now, I know everybody's eschatology is different, so I'm not going to debate or argue that. But regardless if you believe that eschatological view or not, the verses plainly say that Jews and Gentiles would come to the temple and that they would pray. So this is a good thing. So the first part of this verse is, my house is a house of prayer. That's exactly what it is. It's God's house. But then the second part of the verse says, but you have made it. Now catch that. They made it. They did this by coming in and selling merchandise. It says, but you have made it a den of thieves. Den of thieves. Well, what is Jesus Christ quoting this time? Jeremiah 7:11. And in that particular verse, Jeremiah was prophesying from the temple and calling out the nation of Israel for believing lies and embracing wickedness. And what kind of wickedness were they embracing? They were embracing stealing, murder, lying, idolatry. And in doing so, they were making God's house what? A den of thieves. And that's why Jesus Christ was quoting that part of the verse. We see the contrast. The house of God should be a place of prayer, of fellowship. But these people that were selling things and that were, making merchandise of the temple was making it a den of thieves. Dear Christian, I know we're familiar with this account. And I know that we get angry when we read it because we're thinking, how could people of God go to the temple of God and just sell things like it's a marketplace? Did they not fear God? Did they not love God? Well, we need to be careful today as Christians because we are the church. And church congregations, that's the house of God. There's believers there. Do we make merchandise of God's house today? Do we sell and hawk products more than we preach the Word of God? Does the preacher from the pulpit do that? Now, there's some pastors and preachers that actually do that. And that's a shame because they're making merchandise and they're making money out of being in God's house. Well, if Jesus didn't like it then, you better know that Jesus doesn't like it now. And we need to examine ourselves and check ourselves. Now, this doesn't mean that if Christians are selling products or asking for an offering or things like that, that they're making merchandise of God's house. But God knows the heart. God knows if you're using his house as a place of merchandise. And just like Jesus was driving them from the temple, he may be driving you in your heart to stop what you're doing as well. So this is Luke chapter 19, verses 45 and 46. I just wanted to do a quick look to remind you, Christian, that God's house is a holy house. It's for prayer, it's for worship, it's for learning the Word of God, it's for having communion with God and having that sweet relationship and fellowship with God. We should never belittle that to make money. As always, if the videos on this channel have encouraged your Christian walk and edified you in any way whatsoever, but you have not subscribed to my channel yet and you want to, hit the button. If you want to leave any comments, please do so, but please don't be snarky. Please do not be profane. We want to be Christ-like in everything we say and do as Christians. And until we do another quick look, remember, when you go to church, you're going to God's house. Be God's people in God's house, and don't make merchandise of God's house for your own monetary gain. Jesus Christ didn't like that when they were doing it in the temple, and believe me, he doesn't like it today if somebody does it in the church. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and God bless.